From an intelligence perspective as well, one thing that I found interesting was it seemed like there were a lot of counter narratives that were being pushed on social media. You know, like I know I was accused of I was accused of Freemasonry and all these types of things by random individuals on social media. And it became harder for me to see where that information was coming from. Was it random people sitting at home on the couch saying these things, or was there kind of a concentrated effort to stir up misinformation throughout the protesters to cause a bit of division as well? I don't think any of us will ever know what's true and what's false, but it just plays into that whole sense where misinformation can be used by people on either side to get the desired outcome that they want, which is often to stir division between groups.
So I guess you know, even within my role here at Operation People, one of the things that I've been investigating and investigating with sort of the Official Information Act, so using the law to investigate, and also using sort of open source intelligence and human intelligence as well to actually get in and investigate some of these groups and organisations in New Zealand. And to be fair, from what I'm seeing is, you know, there is quite a big effort going on to shape a narrative, shape a perspective within New Zealand. And I definitely think that plays a role in how New Zealand sort of can perceive the rest of New Zealand. Because when you think about it, we operate in a very small part of New Zealand in our everyday lives. You know, you sort of operate in the town that you're in and the school that you're in, and you don't really know a lot about what's going on in the rest of New Zealand unless there's a communication medium that actually shows you and gives you some insight into that. And so if you can sort of control and shape that communication medium that's bringing you information from sort of outside of your sphere of influence, then you can actually shape what the rest of New Zealand looks like. And I think, you know, that's really been politicised in New Zealand. There's been some stuff recently that I find extremely concerning from that perspective. The sort of Avi Yamini story where he was going to come in. We were looking forward to interviewing him just because he was a perspective outside of that narrative. And I guess that's a lot of our area, isn't it? We're looking at perspectives that are outside of that mainstream narrative. And we want to give that some time. You know, we want to communicate that because we want to say, well, hey, let's bring a bit of balance to this picture. And so that RV story was very concerning to me because it was quite obviously politically motivated. I mean, your name got called into that. Now, I don't know why they're looking at your name in such a way. Like, why are they looking to censor and filter based on your name when all you're doing is bringing just another perspective to the picture? And I believe Kiwis are smart enough to look at information themselves and decide, you know, who they want as their source of truth.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because they look at what we do, but yet they don't try and have conversations. Like I know people that have been raided. You know, we've gone and done talks down with farmers in Invercargill, and they've said that some of them have been raided and police turned up with a whole lot of equipment, and it was terrifying for them. But yet I've never had anyone knock on my door and asked to talk with me. And I think it's quite obvious that I'm not a dangerous threat. I'm not a threat to anybody, but what they're worried about is the lack of control over the narrative.
Yeah.
That's actually the threat to them.
Yeah.
So I'm not in any way a dangerous or physical threat, but in terms of people having another perspective, that to them is a major concern. And you can see that. And I think traveling showed me that more so, that visiting other countries, they have multiple perspectives. And they debate them more openly. You have politicians that are more vocal, particularly on the centre to centre right side. Over in Europe, there's a lot more politicians sitting in that centre to centre right space, and they are vocal about being opposed to radicalised governments, whereas we don't have that here in New Zealand, not as much. I mean, National didn't stand up for people's right to say no. ACT didn't stand up for people's right to say no. Definitely not at the beginning. And even in other issues in terms of our country being renamed, all of that. Now, these would be huge issues in Europe. But here, it's just washed under the rug.